Connor is back this week, first time in a while. It's been a little bit, Connor. It's been a little bit, but we're back. We've got a lot to talk about this week. Mahomes might be back. The Patriots might be good. The Seahawks might be really, really bad. And of course, we've got the best and worst for you this week, like we do every week. Let's get right into things. My name's Kyle. His name's Connor. First and goal. I already mentioned it. Patrick Mahomes might be back. This past week against the Raiders, 35 for 50. That's 70% completion percentage, 406 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Connor, what do you think of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs this past week?
Good for them. Good for beating probably the most disorganized team in the NFL right now. After losing Gruden, you then lose Henry Ruggs in a situation I don't want to talk about anymore. We've talked about it enough. It happened. They also cut another player for a gun-wielding video. I think this is more of a pat on the back for the Chiefs to give themselves for beating a team that has nothing going for them right now because of the situation they're in. And it was look, we can still be incredibly good against really bad teams, which the Raiders are right now. And I guess good for them. I mean, it doesn't really prove anything. It's not them beating a good team. He should have done that against the Raiders in the situation they are in right now. So I'm not going to tell them the Chiefs are back. I'm not saying Pat Mahomes is back until they do that against a really good team, which, for being honest, I can't really name that many in the NFL right now. But until they do that against what we can call a contender at this point, I'm not saying they're back. Good for beating up on the Raiders. Congratulations. I mean, that's about the extent I can say to that because he should have done that. We all know that was going to happen. Good job, I guess.
Yeah, I had the same opinion. It's whatever, good job. We've seen a whole season of pretty not good from the Chiefs. So, I mean, having one game isn't going to change my opinion. He did look good, but I'm kind of struggling to say he's back until I see more than one game of this. Every quarterback has a good game. It's a familiar opponent to the Chiefs. They play the Raiders 100 times. So, yeah, that could have played a role in how well they played. I mean, it's a team that they know. And the Raiders are a decent team, but like you said, they're disorganized, and I've never seen a team implode more than the Raiders have this season. But it's a step in the right direction, right? Mahomes has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to poor play, like we've all been saying this season. He's going to turn it around. He's going to turn it around. And we had no idea if he would turn it around or not, as I see that I have a little horn going at the top of my head. And we've all kind of given him the benefit, he's going to turn it around. But the poor play isn't all on Mahomes. It's kind of the Chiefs in general. So it's not that I doubt him because I think Mahomes is going to be Mahomes, but I doubt the team. You know what I mean? This year has been a bad year for Mahomes. Everybody would say it's been a pretty down year. A bad year for him is still a career year for a lot of other quarterbacks. His stats this year after that game: 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 66% completion percentage, 2,900 yards. A lot of quarterbacks would love to have that at this point in the season, So he's playing bad for his standards, but he's playing good when you grade it on a curve to the rest of the NFL. You know what I mean? I'm more concerned about the vulnerability of the Chiefs as a whole. This version of the Chiefs could beat anyone, but how often are we going to get this version of the Chiefs? Their defense still stinks. Their run game is
Sorensen got a pick, so maybe the Chiefs' defense is
Was he the one that got burned on the Deshaun Jackson play where he for some reason turned around?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously, but he got a pick, so it makes up for it.
It has to. Yeah, exactly. He's turning it around. This version of the Chiefs could beat anyone. But the thing is, this version of the Chiefs isn't what we've seen so far this year. Their defense still stinks. They're awful, despite Sorensen getting a pick. Their run game is all right, but suspect how are they really going to maintain that? You know what I mean? And their run game is kind of a product of people being so afraid of Patrick Mahomes throwing it over the top of them. So they're go ahead, run for 5 yards a rush. That's better than Patrick Mahomes averaging 13 yards per throw. Mahomes, if he turns down the turnovers, that fixes one issue, but there's like 100 other issues with the Chiefs. That's the thing. It's not just Mahomes, and the next couple games will be really telling about how this Chiefs team will fare, because they play in their final stretch of games. Next week is against the Cowboys, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Broncos again. So Broncos, one of those teams that's you never know if they're good or not. They're kind of 500, but they're a little frisky. Raiders, like I said, are an okay team. They kind of imploded, but they're a good team. So if you beat them twice by a considerable margin, I'd say that puts you in pretty good position. Chargers are good. Cowboys, I think, are good. Steelers, their offense is bad. And the Bengals, I mean, a couple weeks ago we were looking at the Bengals as like the best team in the AFC, and now they're not even in the playoff picture right now. They're not.
No.
Like, so weird to say. But yeah, so we'll get an idea of how the Chiefs will do going forward, and they'll be able to improve their Q rating, I think, if they can figure it out.
I mean, we right, like everything with the Chiefs that was supposed to be fixed, we haven't really seen be fixed, right? Like the offensive line, obviously, still not where it needs to be to protect Patrick Mahomes. The offense, especially receivers wise, seeing a lot of drops. I mean, I know they got some young guys out there, but it's not firing on all cylinders. Until they pull something off, like we can talk about the Chiefs again if they are in a better spot when they play the Cowboys. I think, in my opinion, that's going to be the game that is going to tell you if the Chiefs are, going to make a run or not. And I think most people are going to agree with that, because the Cowboys are looking, really good right now. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than,
the Raiders.
Right? Yeah, the Raiders. So I think out of that whole stretch of games, the Chargers have been so up and down this season that I'm not really thinking of them as doing something special. Maybe they do against Chiefs. Not really seeing it right now. I think that Cowboys game is going to be the tell as to whether the Chiefs can, figure it out and make a push or not.
Yeah, the issue I have with the Chiefs is that, I mean, was it 2 weeks ago that they played the Packers? I think it was 2 weeks ago at this point, and the offense looked so bad. And then they come out and they play the Raiders, and the offense looks so good. And I don't know what I'm getting from them. You know what I mean? Like their offense, they've been so up and down too. You talk about the Chargers being up and down; they've been up and down too. But I think if they come out here, if they beat the Cowboys, if they beat the Broncos, Raiders, Chargers, if they beat the Broncos twice, I think they have to win by at least like 2 touchdowns for me to be like really convinced on them. But if they go out and they kind of blow out the Broncos twice, beat the Raiders again pretty handedly, come out, beat the Chargers by 10 points or more, I think that's going to show that they're on the right track. I still don't take back my prediction from a couple weeks ago where I said that they would be out in the first round. The thing is, okay, here's the thing. It's the Chiefs. They've been in the Super Bowl the past 2 years, the AFC Championship the past 3. So, like, you have a really tough time betting against them going forward, right? Like, if they're against any team, you're like, well, the Chiefs could go off at any moment. But it's just like, we've been waiting for that moment all year, and we haven't gotten it until this week. We seemingly have gotten it, but I mean, like you said, congrats. You beat one of the biggest, jokes in the NFL this year, and the Raiders organization, and how much has been going on with them. I don't know. I think we're so eager to say he's back, and I don't really know if he's back because it's the Raiders. It's an opponent that he's faced 100 times. The Raiders are the Raiders. But definitely, they kind of control their own destiny at this point, right? Because they play the Broncos twice, the Raiders and the Chargers, all in-division opponents. That division's still close. They could come out in first place if they go through a good run of games here. So, no doubt that they'll make the playoffs, I don't think. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, did you have anything else to say on the Chiefs? Their defense, I mean, they're the same. People are so quick this week. I've seen it on all the shows to say, "Oh my God, they're back. Patrick Mahomes is fixed." I'm not saying that yet. I'm not saying we need to see more. We need to see more. Patrick Mahomes was never the person I was doubting, right? You thought Patrick Mahomes was going to turn it around, the whole time, but we'll see. All right, let's move on. We got 2nd and goal. The Patriots might be good. I'll give my opinion on this in a second, but let's talk about it. The Patriots absolutely demolished the Browns. I think the score was like 42-7 or something like that. Last week I said that they were frauds, and they go out and they do this. So Connor, what's your take on the Patriots?
Well, I was really excited. It was the first time out west I got a televised Pats game all season. So I was super stoked. I was like, oh, they're beating up on the Browns. This is great. I'm watching Pats game. They're winning. And then, of course, as the NFL does, they say, oh, this game isn't worth watching for anyone. So we're going to make you watch a different game. So I got shut off early in the third quarter from the only Pats game I'll get to watch all season unless they make the playoffs. Hey, good for me. Well, that's not true. I got to watch the Tampa Pats game, but that was kind of more for Tom Brady being back than anything else. They really look good. They look great. I mean, I don't think anyone ever doubted the defense. We all knew the defense was going to be good. They've been good. That's their strength of this team. Matthew Judon alone has been a human wrecking ball for them this season. Super happy they signed him. J.C. Jackson's playing well. The entire defense. Kyle Duggar's come on this year for them. So excited for the defense. The offense is. I'm still questioning that. I don't think I'm questioning Mac Jones as much because I've talked about that before. He's the kind of guy that's just going to make the right decision. And we kind of saw more of these, down the field throws, these more threatening looking offense than I think we've seen in the past. But I'm not sold on it because the Browns are also kind of in this dysfunctional mode right now where Baker's very obviously hurt. And it's not like a play through kind of hurt anymore, right? Like Case Keenum played most of that game. And we saw Baker, he goes down hard. He's obviously not healthy. The whole OBJ situation did not help that team at all. Whether it was good or bad when he was with them, it's obviously having deficits now that he's gone. They're on their 3rd string running back at this point in the season, I think, if not further down the depth chart. The defense is obviously kind of hurting a little bit. If the Patriots are putting up that many points on them, they're obviously not. There's something very wrong with the Browns. And we talked about them when we were doing season predictions. And I didn't think you were still on the bandwagon at that point. I've never been on the Browns bandwagon. And I think I really hope that people are finally seeing that there's something really wrong with the Browns organization. Because like we said, they have all the talent in the world. Obviously, injuries have hindered that a lot. There's something very wrong, and I don't know what it is. And the Pats looked really good, but the Browns also looked really, really bad. So I'm not going to say the Pats are great because they played a Browns team that is all over the place right now. Hopefully they keep playing the way they did against the Browns. Do I think it happens? Maybe. But it's more about how bad the Browns are right now than how good the Patriots played, I think, is the real storyline out of that. Because the AFC North was kind of up for grabs, and then all of a sudden, the Bengals kind of fall out, the Browns are falling out, the Ravens have dropped games that they should be winning, and the Steelers are, again, all over the place. So that whole division is now everywhere. So it is what it is. The Pats are going to keep playing the way they've been playing. They'll probably win some more games just because of that defense, but I'm more worried about the Browns at this point.
Yeah, so I'll get to the Browns. I figure I should probably address the Patriots first because I'm starting to look really bad on my Patriots stuff here. So the Patriots moved to 6-4, right? Which is obviously, I mean, if I told you before the season as a Patriots fan, 10 weeks in, you'd be 6-4, you'd be like, no. I'll take that. Yeah, you'd be like, I'll take that.
I wouldn't have believed you. I would have been like, no way. I was thinking more, like the opposite of that, 4-6, maybe 5-5.
Here's the thing. I stand by my take that the Patriots are slightly overrated and fraudulent. It's not that they're a bad team It's that they're probably looking better than they really are. 4 of their wins have come against categorically bad teams. They beat the Jets twice. That speaks for itself. They beat the Texans. That speaks for itself. And they beat the Panthers with Sam Darnold. I feel like that also speaks for itself. So
and
the
that team is going the complete opposite direction that they were 3 weeks ago. So.
I know. 3 years ago, they moved off Cam Newton. 2 years ago, they moved Cam Newton just to bring him back 2 years later because none of their other quarterbacks have worked out. And so the only good teams they've beaten are the Chargers and the Browns. And like you said, the Browns are kind of all over the place. And the Chargers, like we said earlier, are kind of up and down.
In the same boat, yeah.
Yeah. So their losses right now come against the Dolphins. That one's kind of fluky. I'll give them a pass on that because, I mean, Damian Harris fumbles when they're driving downfield to take the lead. They lost to the Saints in a game that looked ugly. I think the scoreline kind of flattered the Patriots a little bit. They lost to the Bucks. Okay, good team. You played them close, you know, and they lost to Dallas in overtime. So those are, they've played 4 good teams this year, and they've lost the 2 best ones, and they've beat the 2 ones that are like, they're like a wave, right? They're up and down and up and down and up and down. Mac Jones has been good though, and I have to give him credit because he's played like older than a rookie. He's played like he has a little bit of experience. He's proven me wrong every step of the way. Right now, since his loss to the Saints, so I think that was week 4, I want to say, or week 3. He's played 7 games, so this would be week 3 was the Saints game. So since week 3, he's played 7 games, has 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 70% completion percentage, 228 yards per game, and it has a 5-2 record. That's pretty good. If you got that out of a rookie quarterback, you'd say absolutely. You know, I don't know if he'll ever be more than a game manager because I think that's who he is as a quarterback. But like I said in the past, there's nothing wrong with being a game manager. If anything, there's a real need for it in the league. Is certain teams need that kind of guy. And he's very good at being a game manager, clearly. Like, he's proven that, and he's only a rookie. I don't know if he'll get a lot better throughout his career because sometimes you have those guys that come in really hot and they never, like, their ceiling is only, like, 1 step higher, and then they kind of plateau there. So I said, I think on the other podcast before the draft that when the 49ers traded up that they weren't taking Mac Jones because there was that rumor that they were going to take Mac Jones, and I was like, you don't trade up for Mac Jones. You just don't. And I stand by that too, because I'd still take upside over him because, like, it's like the floor with Mac Jones was probably higher than all of us gave him credit for, including me. But the ceiling is also relatively low, you know? Whereas when you take someone like Trey Lance, the floor is that he never plays it down in the NFL and he's never ready. And the ceiling is he's a top 5 guy in the league. And you're going to take that ceiling every day of the week over, you know, a guy who's going to be top half of the league. But it's what the Patriots need. The Patriots needed a game manager. And they're well coached. They're well disciplined, as is a Bill Belichick coach team. And they're a legit team moving forward. They might not, I don't know if they'll reach another Super Bowl anytime soon, but they're definitely a reason for the Bills to worry. The Bills need to start capitalizing now while they're still a couple steps ahead of the Patriots, because the Patriots are going to be a real issue for them moving forward.
Well, and even that could even happen this season with how the Bills are playing right now. I mean, the Bills, we all thought were shoo-ins for, you know, at least, you know, a AFC championship game, right? And now we're looking at the Bills and we're like, second round, maybe?
Yeah,
right?
Like, the Bills haven't been another team up and down. I feel like every NFL team is here.
Every NFL team is like that right now. And so we're talking about, you know, threats late, like in a couple years. Like, with how the NFL is set up right now, everyone's a threat to everybody, no matter what division you're in, because everyone's playing so poorly.
Yeah, it's the Bills' window to be like the dominant team in the AFC East was very, very, very short-lived. Yeah, it was one season, and now the Patriots are right back there. And you know what? All credit to the Patriots, who lost a franchise cornerstone, the greatest player to ever walk through the doors of any NFL organization, the heart and soul of the team. They lost him, and it only took 1 year to bounce back. 1 year.
a solid rebuild in a season. Like, and that's unheard of.
The Browns have been rebuilding.
Right?
The Browns have been rebuilding since their team moved to Baltimore. Like, you know, yeah, I think, and I think to move to the Browns, I guess, I think you bring up a really good point in the Browns organization, and there's something wrong. And I think this was really two contrasting organizations. One that's well run, well coached, never slips up, never brings in a guy that's, super, super controversial. Obviously, they had the Aaron Hernandez stuff and stuff like that. But like in 20 years to have one slip up is not a bad thing. Never lets anything out in the Patriots, and now you have the Browns, who in the past 2 weeks alone have had a player, pretty much out his quarterback and need to be released when he had a certain amount of trade value on the market. The Browns have a serious decision to make. I said before the last Patriots game that Baker Mayfield needed to go out and play reasonably well. Because what does Belichick do really well? He exposes weak quarterbacks. That's what he does. That's what he does to rookies. Not that all rookie quarterbacks are weak, but that they haven't developed their games all yet. And he exposes bad quarterbacks, like what he did to Sam Darnold, right? So Baker needed to go out and at least play well. He didn't necessarily have to win, but he needed to play well. He couldn't go out and stink up the place. And until he went down with injury, he kind of stunk up the place. He was not good. He wasn't. And it's so frustrating because I was on the Browns bandwagon. I still am. I'm not dying on that. But it's so frustrating to watch Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield, I loved watching him when he was in college, and I thought he was going to be good. I still think he can be good. But Baker's got one fatal flaw, is that he's got all the talent in the world, but he has not developed the NFL mind yet. And it's been 3 years. 4 years? 4 years? 3 years? 3 years, I think. He kind of occasionally... Here's the thing. Baker has the capability of being super, super efficient and accurate, but he's only kind of shown that in flashes, like no more than like a game or two here and there, right? When he played the Chiefs week 1, he didn't throw a touchdown, but pretty much the entire all the viewers of that game said Baker was phenomenal that game, up until the end when he threw the pick. He was incredible. He has a tendency to either lock on to his first read, where he just kind of, he doesn't read the defense, he doesn't move away from that first receiver. Or he has like these weird instances, which I've never seen before, with a quarterback that's kind of like his strong suit coming out was his accuracy. He has these weird instances where his ball placement is just pretty bad. Like
gone off the field. Like It's not even in play.
Yeah. And it's really strange to watch, because I love Baker Mayfield. I want him to do well because he's electric, and he deserves a lot of credit for the Browns being where they are, right? Him and Jarvis Landry were kind of the culture changers there. They brought in Jarvis Landry, obviously a leader. I don't think anybody's ever questioned Jarvis Landry's leadership. And they bring in Baker, who's kind of this guy who's got swagger, got a chip on his shoulder, perfect for that organization. And they're the two big reasons why they are where they are now. I mean, granted, hiring Kevin Stefanski helps, and bringing in, drafting Nick Chubb and players like that. But they're like the cogs of that machine, right? But he's just had these moments where he's looked bad. Over his last 5 games, Baker Mayfield is 1-4 as a starter. That includes this game, which a little bit of that's not fair because he went down with injury, but they were down big when he went down. That's the last 5 games he's played 60% of. He played 60% of snaps this past New England game, so he was there for the majority of the game. In his last 5 games, he has 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 65% completion percentage, and he averages 211 yards per game. You take out the New England game where he goes down with injuries, he has 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 245 yards per game, which is why I'm saying he has these instances where he looks really, really good, But he also has instances where he looks really, really bad. And the argument for Baker was that his play led to wins. He could lead the Browns offense to wins, and that has not been the case. He's 1-4 in his last 5. They're 5-5 right now. Like, I don't know. I just don't know what's going on with him. I really don't. It's so weird.
This might be. I don't want to. Like you said, watching Baker Mayfield in college and at certain points is just absolutely electric. And when he's good, it is fun to watch. The downside to that is when he is not playing at that level of really good, it's really, really bad. There's no like mediocre in Baker Mayfield's playbook. It's just he's on and he's going to win you a game by himself. Or if Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt don't rush for 100 and something yards combined, they're going to lose badly. So where's the point of not moving on from Baker, but maybe changing the offense, changing how it operates around him or through, or if it still stays through him? We've obviously talked that the offense runs through the run game. They don't have a run game right now. So how do you, going forward, if that run game, if Chubb and Hunt and that whole system isn't your bread and butter for a while, how do you fix that? How do you manage Baker's decision making, his accuracy issues that he has? Do you shorten the throws? How do you get it to the point where you're comfortable with Baker in a majority of the games that he's going to make the right decision, that he's going to make the throws you need him to, which will probably consistently get the Browns more wins? And I think that's the mindset the Browns need to take going forward to make it work with Baker. Because I wouldn't want to move on from Baker. He has these flashes of greatness, like we've talked about, but like, how do you get that, not greatness, but how do you get the kind of consistency you need to win, consistent games that you need to win to get out of just the AFC North?
Yeah, and that's something that I was asking too, is the Browns have to consider their options, and can they make playoff runs with Baker? Because I think that, Browns fans, let's face it, are not looking for a Super Bowl. They might be, but they're really just looking for a relevant team, right? They've been so bad for so long that just making consistent playoff runs would be fine for them. I compared it to the way the Steelers played in towards the middle and late 2010s with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, where they never made a Super Bowl, but they were right there in it, one of the better teams in the league the whole time. Browns fans, that would be their Super Bowl, is being right there, right? They have to make a decision on if they're going to extend him, because we're starting to get towards that time. And I know that they can pick up his fifth-year option. And at this point, that's probably what they're going to do, is pick up his fifth-year option and say, get a healthy season and we'll see, because like you said, he has been injured. But the thing about the Browns is, are there better options out there? I know that Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are potential candidates this offseason. Are Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson coming to Cleveland? Probably
No,
not.
absolutely not.
Probably
you couldn't pay
not.
those guys not to go to Cleveland. And there's no one coming out in the draft that I would take over Baker.
Right. And so it's just frustrating. I think that Baker is a confidence player. And by that I mean, when his confidence is high, he's efficient, moves the ball down the field well, spreads the ball out to the offense. So when you start games, he kind of needs to get in that role, right? But when he starts out games and let's say they go 3 and out, or one and done, or he throws a pick, it's like those games, it only really gets worse. It starts bad and it ends bad. And that's what we mean about Baker being either really good or really bad and no in between, is because he's like that. He's a confidence kind of player. And you look at him and you're like, well, how does Baker lose confidence? He always exudes confidence. But I think there's a real thing about like having confidence on the outside, but not having it, like doubting yourself on the inside. And when he faces a team like the Patriots, Bill Belichick is going to give you a bunch of defensive looks, and he's going to try and make it as confusing as possible for you and make sure you can't get in a groove. That's the kind of team that Baker's going to struggle against, because he can't build up that confidence. And that's a real issue. If you're building your franchise around a guy, you can't have a guy that's just come and go each week on whether or not he's going to be good, I'm not saying Baker needs to be Patrick Mahomes, but he needs to be. He can't be like, he can't have these weeks where he's terrible one week and great the next week and terrible again and up and down and up and down.
Well, the big issue with that is you also play in the most defensive-minded division in all of football, which is the AFC North. Like, that whole division, throughout the history of it, has been built off of defenses, right? Like, the Ravens, historically, defensive-minded teams. The Steelers, historically, defensive-minded teams. Even the Bengals, when they were bad, were still defensive-minded teams. And so that's the thing. Like, if you're coming out of that kind of division, like I said, just to make it out of the AFC North, not even make a playoff push, you have to be able to read complicated defenses. And that's 8 games a year you're seeing that. So, like, how are you going to manage that if obviously he struggles with it thoroughly?
Yeah, and you bring up the division, and a really good point to make is Baker the worst quarterback in that division? I don't think so with Big Ben. I think Big Ben at this age is.
I would think Ben's worse, but
I'd rather have Lamar. That's for damn sure. I'd probably rather have Joe Burrow at this point because I don't think Joe Burrow ever loses confidence like that. And this is the thing. Like, I'm saying all this. I like Baker. I've been Baker. I've defended Baker since he came out of the draft, right? I really like Baker Mayfield. And I'm sitting here saying he's probably the third best quarterback in the division, and that's not particularly close, So you have to think the Browns.
The gap between 3 and 4 is like astronomical at this point because we all know where Big Ben is trending.
Right, exactly. But you're also comparing him to a 36-year-old quarterback that's had a ton of injuries, That's not good. That's not good when he's like 25.
At this point, Baker's headed that way too. He's injured a majority of the time. If he's not out with injuries, he's playing heavily injured. And so, like, where does that put him in 5 years, right? Like, and the other thing is, I think a lot of people in Cleveland are losing confidence in Baker, right? Like, you have Joe Burrow, who was out for an entire season, and the entire city of Cincinnati is behind him. Like, and it's impossible not to be. Like, how could you not be behind Joe Burrow?
Right.
That's just the kind of guy he is. Oh, I think a lot of people in that organization and supporters of the Browns are like, we were supposed to have this, like, spark plug of a dude coming out of Oklahoma, and we get it sometimes, but other times we're like,
right. That's the thing, and that's the problem with Baker. That's where it comes in, is that he's that spark plug sometimes, but other times it's like it looks bad. It looks really, really bad, and I hate to say that, but it does. Sometimes it looks really good, like. He's at no point has he ever looked like a top 10 quarterback, but top 12 in the league. Sometimes he looks like it, and other times he looks like you need to move off this guy immediately. So that's why I'm saying the Browns, what they're probably going to do is just give him his 5th year, make him play for that contract, and then I guess I'll ask you this question as a follow up: what's too much money to pay for Baker Mayfield? Is Kirk Cousins' money too much money at this point in the NFL?
The problem, right, like, no matter what happens, the NFL quarterback contract controversy at this point is he's going to get money he doesn't deserve. Right? And I think we all agree with that.
It's just going to happen.
With how Baker has played, I wouldn't pay Baker more than $25 a year. I really wouldn't. Right? And I think you'd agree with me on that. The way he's played,
that's actually exactly where I sit right now. It's at 25.
He is a middle-of-the-road quarterback who's going to get you marginal wins. Like, and you're not even fighting for a contract at that point. If I'm the Browns, I sign Baker, I pick up his 5th year, I give him 25, or, I'd give Baker 25 for a season, be like, hey, here's the deal. If you don't, in the stipulation of, not in the contract, obviously, but in the decision, it's like, hey, you have to get us to the playoffs. It's whether it's a wild card or an actual spot, that is where Baker needs to go with that team. And if he doesn't get there, I think it's time to move on.
And there's ample opportunity to make the playoffs with 3 wild cards.
Exactly. So I think that's the situation the Browns are going to go, because I can't see them doing an extension for Baker. I wouldn't be able to do it. Pick up the 5th year, give him $25 million, and be like, hey, if you don't get us to the playoffs, we're gonna have to move on, because like we've talked about so much about how talented that Browns team is. They should be winning games. There's no excuse for them to not win games. And I think the more and more I watch that team, Baker is the guy who holds them back. Which sucks to say.
And it sucks to
looking
say.
more and more like that. In every game I watch for the Browns, I see it. And it's like, okay, Baker probably is the issue with this team at this point.
Right. Which sucks, because sometimes he looks like he's the solution. And it just sucks. I sit right around 25. I don't think they should offer more than, I don't think he's worth more than 25 at this point. He could always get better. We've seen late resurgences in careers a couple of years down the line. Drew Brees did it, where he was okay at San Diego, goes to New Orleans and has a Hall of Fame career. Ryan Tannehill did it, where he was at Miami and he goes to the Tennessee Titans and ends up being a really good I hesitate to say really good with Ryan Tannehill, but at least a good quarterback, right? Whereas in Miami, he seemed like a lost cause. So we've seen it before. I think I was listening. I forget who I was listening to, but I was listening to someone, they had a guest on, and they said that they wouldn't offer, like, the Kirk Cousins contract is what they would offer Baker. Just 3 years, guaranteed, and figure it out. And I don't know, like you said, the thing with quarterback contracts is they're always going to get more than what you think they're worth. So if you think he's worth 25 and he gets 30, I think you'd take that. As far as quarterback contracts go, because at this point it's just who has the contract next. They're going to be paid the most. Yeah, but I don't know. It's just two contrasting sides of this game. Patriots kind of look like they're walking in the right direction. The Browns look like they're walking in the complete wrong direction. And the thing, one last point. You said that they're on their third string running back. Dearness Johnson is still a pretty good running back.
So of course, that's not a knock on him. It's the fact that you're getting that deep and you're still having to kind of carry Baker with your third string guy, who is arguably on some teams in the NFL like a 1 or a 2 running back at this point.
He'd be a one. He'd be a one on Atlanta. He'd be a one on Atlanta.
Yeah. So we're like saying this kind of stuff, but like, good on him for being that good at the third running back on that team, which is a running heavy team. But that shouldn't be once you get that deep in your depth chart, you should be looking at Baker and being like, hey, you got to pick it up.
You gotta bring something to the table here, right? Next week's show, I should remind myself of this for later. We should play Baker versus and see which quarterbacks we'd rather have, because there's definitely some matchups. Maybe that's for later in the season when we have like a really particularly bad week, but we'll have to play that.
It's not the last 4 weeks of NFL football have been great.
Yeah, really. All right. Let's move on. Give myself a little bit of pause here so that I can remember to cut the show in half. All right, let's move on. We got 3rd and goal. Seahawks. Where do they go from here? Because they do not look good. Newsflash: Russell Wilson was not the answer. They're 2-4. The Seahawks sit at 3-6 right now. And the only reason we're doing this topic is because of a particular person. You know who you are. The Seahawks right now are 3-6. They're 2-4 with Russell Wilson, and they're 1-2 with Geno Smith. So they're bad whether or not they have their quarterback or not. They average 20 points per game with Russell Wilson. They average 20 points per game with Geno Smith. And they have 228 pass yards per game with Russell Wilson and 151 pass yards per game with Geno Smith. So there's the difference between when you have an elite quarterback and when you have Geno Smith at quarterback. You know what I mean? Connor, one thing I should mention before I flip it to you: 29th ranked pass defense, 25th ranked rush defense. Connor, What do you think of the Seattle Seahawks?
So I think I kind of was thinking about the Seahawks decline after that Patriots Super Bowl. I think that put a huge dent in a lot of what they were planning on doing with that team. Obviously, the Legion boom was aging. They were losing players. I think that kind of started this decline of, okay, what's next, right? Like they go in, they destroy Denver in the Super Bowl. They come back, they lose on a horrible, arguably, what most people argue is one of the worst play calls in Super Bowl history, not running with Marshawn Lynch from the one. And then we just kind of see this kind of like, obviously it wasn't a landslide decline because they were still a good team, but it was just kind of this slow rolling downhill for the Seahawks since that Super Bowl, right? That defense falls apart. They're now one of the worst defenses in the league and have been for a few years now. And Russell Wilson plays out of his mind, even hurt, every week for that team. Every week, that dude is giving everything he possibly can to try and win a game. And the big issue is not even talking about how bad their defense is. He has no help on offense. DK has these flashes of like, wow, this huge physical receiver that's a deep threat and is going to catch the ball, to he has 3 drops in a game and things are hitting him in the chest that should be touchdowns, right? The offensive line is terrible. The run game is essentially, if the running back isn't making his own holes and running for 6 yards a carry, it's not helping them at all. Pete Carroll's coaching decisions have gone downhill significantly. I said this before. I wish Russell had cut out when he could in free agency. Russell tries to make it work in Seattle because he loves the city. I mean, that city owes him everything because he's given them everything he's had since he came out of college. So it's kind of at this point now where it's like, what does Russ do? Because there's nothing more that he can do to make that team better. He is doing everything he possibly can. It's not on him anymore. He's proved that he can do everything. It's how do they help Russ get somewhere? Or does Russ need to say, hey, guys, this isn't working anymore, and just put his foot down and be like, and the Seahawks go into a complete and total rebuild by, 1, getting rid of Pete Carroll and getting someone new. 2, do they beg Russ to stay again, or do they try and get something for him in a trade? Obviously, we all know Russell Wilson is worth a lot if he was to be traded. But at this point, I think the biggest thing for the Seahawks is they need to go into a rebuild. And that starts with getting rid of Pete Carroll and seeing what they can get for Russ, because I don't think Russ, as much as he's given that city, I don't think he wants to be part of that rebuild, because that rebuild is going to take a long, long time. That is not a quick rebuild team, because they have only a couple pieces that you're like, okay, we keep him, we want to build around this. It's not a team where you have whole, you don't have a linebacking core that you're sold on. You have a defensive line you're sold on. So they are a complete and total rebuild team, and I think Russ deserves more than having to sit through
that. Is my mic on here? Yes, it is. Yeah, so you said a lot there. And one of the things that you said that I knew you were going to come out with is that they need to get rid of Pete Carroll, because if there's one person that does not like Pete Carroll in this world,
can't stand Pete Carroll.
It is you. Here's the thing. Like I said, we found out Russ isn't the answer that they needed to be good. It turns out that they're just not good. They need more than one player. Their offense is limited. Their defense is not good. And they've overplayed for players. See Jamal Adams, maybe the biggest disappointment in the league. I'm looking it
But
up
again,
right
he got
now.
a pick this week too. So what do you say about that?
I know. So, who knows? But he also had a pick a couple weeks ago go right off his face mask. I was looking up what they gave up for Jamal Adams. Let's see. They gave up. The Seahawks are sending to the Jets first and third round picks in next year's draft, a first rounder in 2022. So this was last year. So 2021 first round pick, 2022 first round pick, and safety Bradley McDougald, who I'm pretty sure was decent for them, like he was a starting caliber safety. In return, they're going to get a fourth round pick in 2022, so this year's draft, and Jamal Adams. And I've never seen a player go from, oh my God, Jamal Adams is the biggest, what is
One
the
of the
word?
biggest game breakers. He was a game breaker for the Jets.
He was a game
You
breaker
were
and a sympathetic figure because he was on the Jets, to Jamal Adams on the Seahawks is one of the biggest disappointments in the league at safety.
to,
And he might not
being
even
a
be
game
top three in
breaker.
his position. And there was a point where he was the number one at his position.
He's
You
not
know?
even close to top 5 at this point.
So I don't know. They've made bad personnel decisions. Jamal Adams trade. There was another trade in there that I can't remember off the top of my head where they gave up a bit for a player who was mediocre at best. They've been awful at drafting. Outside of DK Metcalf, do you know who the only other Pro Bowler they've drafted in the past 6 years is?
Couldn't tell you.
It's a punter. It's a punter.
There you go.
I took the liberty of looking at their last 6 first-round picks. I did 6 because then 2014, 2015, they have no first-round picks, so I decided to stop there at 2016. So it goes in 2021, they had no first-round picks because of the Jamal Adams thing. 2020, they had Jordan Brooks, who I actually forgot to look up how many games Jordan Brooks has, but I know from his Wikipedia page that he didn't get his first start until week 16. LJ Collier. Do you know who LJ Collier is? Me neither. Rashad Penny. Everybody knows the electric running back Rashad Penny. Has he ran for
his last game? No, I think his last game was 2 attempts for 8 yards or something.
Has he ever ran for more than 400 yards in a season? It'd be hard for us to figure it out. In 2017, they did not have a first-round pick. And in 2016, they drafted Jermaine Ifedi, who is now on the Bears. And we all know how good the Bears' offensive line is. And when he was on the Seahawks, we all know how good the Seahawks' offensive line was at that time. So,
and he was the weak point of that offensive line.
Yeah. It's not been a good couple of years for the Seahawks. They're a team that needs to hit the reset button, but doesn't want to admit it. And they've only been relevant because Russell Wilson kind of keeps them there. And look, like you said, Russell Wilson has a lot of value on the trade market, right? Because Russell Wilson is probably everybody's dream of a franchise quarterback. You're never going to have any problems with him. There's never going to be an Aaron Rodgers situation. There's never going to be a Deshaun Watson situation. That's for sure. Makes great plays. Does he have some flaws? Does he hold on to the ball a little long sometimes? Yeah, but at the same time,
that might be a product of the offense that he has.
he might also, he also is electric and he might make a play out of it. You never know. So he has a lot of trade value. And I mean, I said the offense was limited. Their running backs, I mean, Chris Carson, I think he's good, but I don't know if he's always hurt. Their offensive line is bad. Their receivers, I mean, look, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are perfectly fine receivers, right? But like you said, sometimes DK Metcalf looks like, wow, this guy's a physical freak, like the next coming of Megatron. And other times he looks like, wow, this guy's such a waste of physical talent, Tyler Lockett is good for the first 6 weeks of the year and then sucks after that.
It literally disappears. I've never seen a player do this, and he's done it his entire career. For Tyler Lockett, the first half of a season, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is so cool. He's making every cut, he's running every route, he's catching deep balls, he's doing everything. And then he literally every season disappears. And not just he catches, he'll have a peak game somewhere later in the season. He'll average 4 catches for like 30 yards for the whole rest of a season.
Yeah.
And he does it every single year. And
It's insane.
Can't wrap my, because like you had Doug Baldwin forever. And they got Tyler Lockett. And you're like, oh, second coming of Doug Baldwin. This is perfect. You know, you're going to plug and play these guys. And you have a great slot receiver who can also be a deep threat. And then you're like, wait, there's times where I forget Tyler Lockett plays for the Seahawks.
I'm going to be honest. When I was preparing for the show, I forgot Tyler Lockett played for the Seahawks.
Exactly. So you're like, oh my God, Tyler Lockett, like, this is great. He had 11 catches for 100-something yards and 2 touchdowns. And at the end of the season, you're like, he get traded?
Yeah.
You're like, what?
He had 700 yards 6 weeks into the season. How did he only finish with 950? You know, like it's that sort of thing. Yeah, and I mean the defense just speaks for itself. It's so bad. It's so bad. I've never seen a defense go from the most feared defense in the league. Like that's what they were 6 years ago. That's what they were. Even less, maybe even 5 years ago, you know, towards the tail end of the Legion of Boom when they were starting to get injured, but they were still
Cam Chancellor leaves, but they were
still to be reckoned with at minimum. They are so unbelievably bad. It's unreal. And like I said, that just comes with bad personnel decisions. You know, they haven't been able to recapture that magic. And I like Pete Carroll. But you might be right in saying that they have to move on from him. That might be the case. That might be the case. It might be time to move on. And it's almost a testament to people like John Harbaugh and Bill Belichick especially, and Andy Reid. And even Andy Reid left the Eagles a couple years ago. But these guys that have been good for so long, because sometimes your voice just gets tired in the locker room. And I'm starting to think that Pete Carroll's voice might be getting a little tired in that locker room, you know?
Well, we also have to give Pete Carroll credit. You don't see it. He's a lot older than the other guys we're talking about.
He's like in his 70s.
Yeah. So, and he was great. And like collegiately, him coaching USC was, you know, incredible.
Oh,
and
he'll go down as one of the greatest of all time.
Right? So you see this, but there's a point where you kind of need to, you know, be like, hey, you know, there isn't that inspiration anymore. There isn't that control, like, because outside of play calling, you also need to control an entire team, and not just the team, most of the organization. So I think there's a point now where Pete Carroll just doesn't have that kind of control anymore. It's just not there, and maybe it's because he's been in that role for so long. I mean, but who knows? But I think that's kind of what's happened.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the Seahawks need to hit reset. I think Pete Carroll, I mean, USC job is open. Who says he doesn't go back to USC? That would be electric. That would be electric. Russell Wilson, I mean, he's quote unquote not asked for a trade before. So maybe that sort of thing comes to mind, and the Seahawks try to get as much as they can for Russell Wilson. And they need to hit the reset. But they're the worst team in the division, and it's not close. Like the 49ers at least
went out and destroyed the Rams. So
and they have a plan for the future at least in Trey Lance, you know, like who knows if he works out, but they have something. They have a plan, you know. And they're a young team in general. Like your cornerstones, Nick Bosa's young, you know, so Deebo Samuel's young. The Rams are all in, you know, so they're excuse me, probably top of that division. And then the Cardinals have young talent and look like they're going to be good for years to come. So the Seahawks are kind of stuck in this loop. But the Seahawks are kind of stuck in this area of, unless Russell Wilson carries us to victory, we are awful, and we are the worst team in our division by far.
That for a long time. It's not like this is a thing that happened this season. This has been happening for 3 years now.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. A punter is the next best guy. Is the second Pro Bowler that they've drafted in 7 years. A punter. That's not good. Your punter. The only reason your punter makes a Pro Bowl is when they've punted a lot. Like that's the only reason your punter makes a Pro Bowl.
The Patriots were in that situation last year, I think.
Yeah.
Jake Bailey was like the first Pro Bowler the Pats had drafted in like and outside of Devin McCourty in like a decade or something.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we forgot to mention with the Patriots. Shout out Jacoby Myers ending his touchdown drought.
He finally got one.
Very good. All right. Unless you had anything more to add, I think we'll move on. All right. Let's move on. We got 4th and goal. Best and the worst, like we do every week. Connor, do you want me to go first, or do you want you to go first?
You go first, Kyle.
Okay. My best for the week is the curse. Our podcast curse hits again, but in a positive light this time. I said the Patriots were frauds, and they went out and demolished the Browns. I said I think we had an argument last week on if the Chiefs would ever look good again, and that's when I said that they'll be out in the wild card round, and they went out and blew out the Raiders. I criticized the Cowboys last week for losing to the Broncos, and they went out and they demolished the Falcons. So the curse sometimes works in a good way, I will say. So this time, who did we bash? We bashed the Browns and Baker Mayfield. So that means he'll go out and throw 4 touchdown passes next time he plays, and the Browns will blow out the other team. We bashed the Seahawks for an entire segment, so they're about to go undefeated the rest of the way and make the playoffs. Let's see. We complimented the Patriots. They're not winning another game this year. And we doubted the Chiefs again, so they're going to go on a roll here. So that's just how it works. But the curse is back in a good way, though.
We do what we can here, Kyle.
Yeah. Go ahead, give your best.
My best, obviously, the Patriots looked great against a really bad Browns team. I was just happy that I got to watch a partial part of a game before they booted it. My word, and I've talked to you about this. I haven't been on here in a bit. My worst is just the entire NFL, specifically the reffing over the past entire season. It's only progressively gotten worse throughout the season. I mean, pointing out the Cassius Marsh taunting call.
Oh my God.
Right? The NFL has been bad. And not just bad, historically bad. There hasn't been a single game I've been looking forward to watching. When I have watched games, I'm bored. Good teams are horrible. Bad teams are bad, and they're playing to the level of each other. Teams that should be winning are getting blown out. I mean, the Niners blow out the Rams. We thought the Rams were going to be awesome. There's very little part of me, and we both I love the game of football. Love it. I have no interest in watching the NFL right now, and that hurts me to say. I get to watch my brother's game. I get to watch my brother's game, D3 football, and it was good D3 football. And I was so excited to watch the games, and I love watching my brother, have since he started playing college. Pro games make me angry. I get angry when I see a slate, like the NFL schedule for the week. I'm like, I don't want to watch any of these games at all. And I have good teams in my market. I get Cowboys games. I get Chiefs games. I get, all these, Cardinals are in my my TV market. I'm not excited to watch any of them because I don't know if the Cowboys are going to go out and win by 30 or get blown out by 30. There's just nothing in the NFL that is making me excited to want to watch it. I was stoked. I was like, I'm going to get to watch, the Bills. The Bills go and lose to the Jags by 3, and it's a 6-9 game. There's no favorites that I'm rooting for. There's nothing, and I know I'm ranting about this, but there's nothing in the NFL right now that makes me want to watch the NFL at all, whatsoever. And that makes me sad and angry at the same time.
The entire NFL doesn't make sense right now. Like you said, good teams are playing bad. Bad teams are still playing bad, but beating the good teams. It's just everyone sucks at this point. Everyone sucks.
Everybody is bad. There's no we were like, oh, the Rams, and then Tampa's beating garbage teams. The Rams get blown out by the Niners. The Cowboys have it, go out and abuse the Falcons, but the Falcons are absolutely trash. So if they didn't do that to the Falcons, we'd all be, what the hell's going on with the Cowboys?
Right.
So it's just the point now where the NFL makes me angry. And I can't watch a game because every 5 seconds a whistle is being blown for some bullshit penalty that doesn't make any sense at all, whether it's a team I'm rooting for or not. And this taunting shit has to go because it's ruining everything that's funny about the NFL, which is people taunting people. That's like kind of the whole point. Like, there's a Tosh.0 skit that's like, I don't know, probably a decade old now, where he's like, let them do whatever they want. If some dude wants to do jumping jacks in the end zone, let him do it. Who cares? Right?
Yeah.
Like, they're getting paid tens of millions of dollars to play a game. Who cares if they like dance on somebody? Like,
Right.
It doesn't matter. So that's the thing. The reffing is awful. Everyone's playing horribly. Maybe that's because of the reffing. Maybe it's not. When can we get a good NFL game? That's all I want. One game, just one game where I don't look at it and I'm like, I turn it off before the first quarter ends because it's just nothing is going right for anybody.
I guess I'll parlay off of that. I'll tell you where you wouldn't have found a good game this past weekend. My worst, the Lions tying 16-16 against the Steelers. Oh my God, was this game terrible? This game made me want to throw up. Like it was so unbelievably bad. That overtime period that they played was basically who wants to lose the game more. And turns out they wanted to lose the game equally, so they tied. Like it was just so bad.
Lose.
Yeah. Like the Lions were just inventing new ways to give the Steelers opportunities to win the game and like continue them being defeated. And the Steelers were continuing to invent new ways to show like, hey, we're not the Steelers from 5 years ago. We suck. Like this game was so bad. It was so unbelievably bad. That's the only words I have to describe it. It was awful.
Well,
it was one of the worst football games I've ever watched. Period. Not even professional. Just one of the worst football games I've ever watched.
And I like saw a graphic of like the overtime drive summary. It was like field goal, fumble, punt, field goal, fumble, and I was like, you have to try to be that bad in an NFL over. Like, there must have been an active plan to just not try and win. I don't know if it was the Steelers just being like, you know what, guys, they probably won't win one this season. So, like, let's give them one. And then the Lions, being the Lions, were just like, hey, guys, we might as well go 0-17 and get a top draft pick again because why not? So,
I think the overtime was like punt, fumble, or no, punt, fumble, interception, fumble, punt. Like it was awful. It was so bad. Jared Goff. Turns out that it was Jared Goff that was bad on the Rams and not just the Rams. So who knew? Who knew that Jared Goff wasn't good? No
way.
Which is, what the worst part about this is for you is your prediction for week 1 was that Jared Goff would play terrible and the Lions would regret their decision. And that was the only week this season where Jared Goff has played well. So if you had made that prediction at any other point in the season, you would have gotten it right. Like
I know. Well, and that's the thing that they're still going to regret it. I mean, there's no way they look at Jared Goff at the end of the season and be like, wow, guys, you know what? Give enough Matt Stafford. What a great point. And of course, there's nothing else on that Lions team anyway. So it's not like blaming Jared Goff is kind of a cop out because that team's horrible anyway. But getting Jared Goff was not to fix that team.
No,
right? Like
that team's bad, but Jared Goff is bad. Like he's bad.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift is the only good player on that offense. He's the only
DeAndre Swift has games where you're like, oh God.
Yeah. So it's just it was a terrible game. Here's a question I'll pose to you, I guess, real quick before we get to the final part. What is worse, going 0-16-1 better than going 0-16? I feel like it's the same.
I think going 0-16-1 is actually worse than flat out losing all of the games, because that showed that there was a chance that you could have won a game and didn't. Like,
Yeah.
I would look at a tie in a winless season and be like, you guys could have and should have won this game, and you couldn't. Like, as a fan or as like a member of that organization, it would make me irrationally more angry to get a tie in a winless season than just losing all the games. Because if you just lose all the games, everyone's like, oh, they lost them all, maybe we get one next year, whatever. Instead of being like, there was a game we should have won and we didn't, and we tied it. So I would rather just lose everything than be like, hey guys, we could have won this one.
I think I'd rather go like, yeah, I think you're right. I think I'd rather go 0-16 than 0-16-1.
Just
Because
lose them all.
basically, if you're gonna lose. All right. That's the show, which means we move on to either the extra point or the 2-point conversion. So either Connor's going to pick a prediction or he's going to pick trivia. So, Connor, I think he has one win in each, and one was on a technicality that's no longer true. The trivia one that he got. The trivia one he got is because Adrian Peterson wasn't in the league, and now he is in the league, so we might have to take that one away. And then I think he got one prediction right, and that the Rams would win. I think that was the prediction. So it's your choice. What do you want to go with? Do you want to trivia or do you want to make a prediction?
I'm looking at the slate of games, and I might cry because they're awful again.
What, you're not interested in Browns Lions?
I'm not interested in Pats Falcons or Bills Colts. That actually, unfortunately, might be the best game of this coming weekend. Ravens Bears, Lions Browns, Texans Titans, Packers Vikings, Jets. Oh, you know what might be the best game? Jets Dolphins. Yeah, maybe I'll watch that. Saints Eagles, Panthers Washington, Niners Jags, Bengals Raiders, Chiefs Cowboys. All right, there we go.
That's the only good one.
That's the only good one. Cardinals Seahawks, Steelers Chargers, and then Bucks. Who put Bucks Giants on Monday night? Also, my other worst of the season is who picked the primetime football games this year. Who was allowed to pick them? Because they are also making the season bad. Who allowed the Bucks and Giants to play on Monday night? Who went and was like, you know what, guys? Let's put the defending Super Bowl champs against one of the worst teams in the NFL on Monday Night Football.
They're lucky the Lions beat the Ravens this past Thursday night, because that was also shaping up to be one of those games that was just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
So, are you going to make a prediction or go with trivia?
I don't want to predict anything. I'm going to get this trivia wrong. And to be honest, we should take away the injury in Peterson one, because he is back in the NFL. So let's just do a trivia. I'll get it wrong and we can move on for next week.
Okay. So, as you might know, the 2014 Kansas City Chiefs did not throw a touchdown pass to a single wide receiver that whole year. I don't know if you remember that one. They finished 9-7 the whole season. Not a single touchdown pass went to a wide receiver. Jamal Charles had 5 touchdown catches. Travis Kelce had 5, and I think it was, Anthony Fasano, who's the backup tight end, had 4, and then a couple people had 1, like the fullback had 1 and stuff like that. But one of their receivers went for over 750 yards on the season. Their number one receiver that year, a guy that I think you would probably know of, so it's not that far off. Who was their number one wide receiver that year? Travis Kelce had the most yards. I should clarify. Travis
In
Kelce had
what
the most
year?
yards on the team. 2014. Travis Kelce had the most yards on the team. He had 862. This guy was 100 yards behind. Kind of not a throwback player, but definitely a guy that you haven't heard about in a lot of years.
Oh God.
Was he ever selected to a Pro Bowl? Let me see.
Was it Sammy Watkins?
I'll give you another guess because Sammy Watkins would have been on the Bills at that time.
Oh, that's right.
He was selected to a Pro Bowl at one point in his career.
Oh God.
2010, he was selected to a Pro Bowl. He had 1,100 yards and 15 receiving touchdowns. So,
2010.
yeah.
Oh God.
I don't know if you can hear my sweet mates in the background.
Yeah, they're quite loud.
You can?
Nice.
There we go.
I don't know. That's well,
Give it a guess.
But 2010. What team was he playing for in 2010?
The Chiefs. He was actually playing for the Chiefs.
Oh God. I don't know. I have no clue. The Chiefs weren't relevant in 2010. I have no
they
clue.
weren't. They were not relevant. He played most of his career with the Chiefs. His last year with the Browns. Do you give up?
Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna hate yourself for this one. Dwayne Bowe. Dwayne Bowe.
What?
Did you not remember Dwayne Bowe?
I did not.
He was. I remember.
I played for the Chiefs when they were awful.
Yeah, I remember his one electric season. I'm pretty sure he got arrested sometime after that, so that's might be why you haven't heard from him in years. Forgot he was ever in the league. Forgot he ever existed. But yeah, Dwayne Bowe, leading receiver on the 2014 Kansas City Chiefs, who did not throw a touchdown pass to a single receiver.
Bowe.
Yeah, I know. There we go. Dwayne Bowe getting the shout out he never thought he'd get today.
Dwayne Bowe is the wide receiver equivalent of like Priest Holmes for the Chiefs, right? Like,
no,
had incredible years.
Priest
Like,
Holmes
had incredible years. No, I know, but like when you think about like that era, right? We've talked about that kind of era of players. You had incredible guys who were just like forgotten in history because they were incredible guys, but you look back and you couldn't like name that. Like if someone was like, "Oh, who was that?" and you're like,
I will forever think that Priest Holmes should be in the Hall of Fame. Dwayne Bowe, not a Hall of Famer, but a decent player, I would say, at his peak. A decent player. All right. That's the show. That's all we got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, if you're watching part 2, go back and watch part 1. You'll hear us rant about Baker Mayfield and the Browns for about 20 minutes. And if you like the show, make sure to drop a like, comment anything you think we missed, what's something we should talk about next week, any opinions you have, and follow the Clutch Gene podcast to get updates on when we come out with shows every Thursday. They come out every Thursday. It's on a schedule, except when we skip 2 weeks like we did 2 weeks ago. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see all of you next week.